Good morning.
You hear me?
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you? Welcome to Little Podcast That Could.
Thank you. I'm okay. Kind of tired, but I'm okay.
You're tired. How come?
I work late and I go to bed late.
Uh,
And
the
You're a
life
night
of a
owl.
rock star.
Yeah.
So, Alan, we'll get started. First of all, thank you so much for joining us today, taking time out of your schedule. Really excited to have you here. Um,
my pleasure.
can you tell us a little bit? Let's go back to the beginning, when your family immigrated to Canada when you were like 16, I think it was, right, from Scotland?
Yeah. I just turned 16 when we got here, and I thought I was going to go back. At the time, my dad came over ahead of everyone, and I was all into coming to Canada until I met a girl.
Of course.
Right.
I met this girl in Scotland, and I thought I was in love, and I didn't want to leave. And then my friends and everyone said, "Well, you can't do that to your dad. Go to Canada, and you'll be 16, and then you'll be an adult. You can come home again." And I said, oh, "Okay." And I told the girl I'll come back, but it didn't get me too far.
Mm.
I uh, I went to school, and I met lots of girls
Bet.
who who kind of liked my accent, and I never made it back to my first love at 16.
Did you ever
Right.
follow up? Did you ever like talk to her afterwards, or it was just like, see you later, here's
I think
Canadian girls?
I think those are the days of airmail
Yeah.
letters. You might be too young for that. I might have written her to then say, "It's going to take me a while to come back." Uh, I did go back actually when I was 19 for a quick. I'm a big soccer fan, and I went home to see my team, but I never saw the girl again.
Hmm.
I'm trying to think of a name.
Feels like there's a
Was
song in there, Alan.
Yeah, really, really. But don't forget me when I'm gone.
Yeah, truly.
there
I
you
mean,
go.
how long, like, so you come to Canada at 16, and how long is it before you get to that song? Like, is it,
Oh, a long time. I was so Glass Tiger hit me 86, 85. So I was 28,
oh,
going on 29 when I wrote "Don't Forget Me." What we wrote "Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone."
Right. Right. And that was your breakthrough album. Thin Red Line was 1986, is that right? And you
Yeah,
were around 28, 30 at that time. That's I don't want to say that's old, but that's a little bit old to break through for a
yeah.
musician. What
mhm.
happened leading up to that, to like the
Well,
formation
I
of
was
Glass
in.
Tiger?
Okay, so I was in. I'm about, I don't know, maybe 19 or 20 or something like that, when I was watching a hockey game on a Wednesday night with my dad, and my mum came and she said, "There's four scruffy bastards at the front door. Get rid of them." And I went out, and there was these guys with long hair and beards and whatnot. And one of them said, "This guy heard you singing at a party with playing acoustic guitar, and he tells me you're great. And we were wondering if you'd like to audition for our band." And I kind of said yes, just to get rid of them. But sure enough, they showed up the next night with an old Chevy car, and they took me to a rehearsal space with real microphones and guitar amps, which was bizarre.
Right.
And they asked me, "What do you know?" And I said, "Well, anything by the Beatles."
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we played "Get Back" by the Beatles, and I could see them in my peripheral, kind of going, "Wow, want this guy."
Yeah.
And I played "Back in the USSR" by the Beatles. And so they asked me to join the band. And I was in that band for at least 2 or 3 years, and we starved. You know, we played every crappy bar you can think of, and we travelled a fair bit, and we were just starving. So I then had this wacky idea that I wanted to be a doctor. Don't ask me why. I had no money, and I'd let all my sciences go. So I ended up working in a steel factory cutting tubes. But I kept bugging the hospital, the local hospital, for a job, to the point where they knew my accent, and I would just go, hello, and they would go, no, we don't have any openings, Alan. And this would go on until one day I was cutting tubes, and the foreman came and said, there's a phone call for you, don't be long, don't take too long. And I took it, and the hospital said, do you want a job? I said, yeah. He said, okay, you start tomorrow. I said, okay, as an orderly. So I went back to the foreman and I said, there you go, was that quick enough? And he goes, yeah. I said, good, you know, shove your job, I quit.
You're out of there.
And so I got a job as an orderly, and I got a job as a pathologist assistant. They let me see an autopsy one time, and I didn't flinch. And the pathologist was sort of saying, Alan, could you hold this for a minute and grab this and do that? And he's cutting and got the saw out and the whole bit. And he noticed that I had no problem with it. And he asked me if I'd like a job because the guy who had it was leaving. So I assisted in autopsies for 4 years.
What?
And went on to become a registered nurse. I took my RN, I put myself through, as a single parent, by the way.
Wow.
And so all this was going on when the bass player from the first band called me and said, any chance? And I said, no, I'm not interested. I'm going to be a doctor. Oh, just come and meet them. I said, okay. So I went, I sang the Beatles, and they said, you've got to join this band. And I said, well, I'm only doing it as a hobby because I'm really going to be I had just applied, actually, to take the operating room course to be a scrub nurse. That was going to be the next thing I was going to do. When we started playing the bars, and the bars started to fill up, and record companies started coming around. And a crazy thing happened, actually. Capitol Records, they wanted us, they were going to sign us, and I got invited to go down to the record company, thinking that was the day we were going to sign, when lo and behold, they offered me a deal, a solo deal, and they were going to send me to England and make me a star. And I said, what about the band? Don't need the band. And I'm like, that's insane. When we make you a star, we'll build a band around you. And I said, well, I need to think about it. And, you know, the president of the label said, think about it. And so I never called them back. And they were so pissed off. That little Scottish prick, he'll never work in this town again.
That's you.
Yeah.
And so we gigged again, and I said, okay, boys, play well. We've no record deal. And so we kept going. And then a guy came up from America, a manager came from America. He used to manage Styx. He was invited up by our Canadian manager, and he fell in love with us. And he got us 2 nights opening up for a culture club in Boy George at Maple Leaf Gardens. And I was still on the night shift. I had to be Joe Popstar at 8 o'clock and then go sling bedpans and on the night shift. And we did that the 2 nights, and I finished my 7 nights straight. And on a Monday morning, my mother came to the room and woke me up, and she said, I was a single parent at the time, and we were all kind of looking after my son because I had to leave a lot. And I went to the old phone with a cord on it in the living room, and I said, hello. and the voice said, "You're a star." And I said, "Who is this?" And it was the second in command at Capitol Records. And then Dean came on and he said, "Okay, you little bugger." He said, "I guess if I want the cherries, I'll have to take the whole pie. Get your arse down here." And that was it. We signed the deal. Sorry, that was a long-winded story.
Love it. Love hearing that story.
That's a
I
crazy
wonder
story.
how did Jim Vallance get into your circle? And because like at the time
Well,
he was
then,
solely working with Bryan Adams. So how did he get it?
yeah. So Jim had the bug to be a producer. That was going to be the next phase for Jim. Not that he was going to stop writing with Bryan and writing for other artists, but Capitol Records had got wind of this, and so they said to us, "We're going to invite this guy to your rehearsal. His name is Jim Vallance." We didn't know Jim at the time. We certainly knew the songs. And Jim flew in and he met us and he really liked what he heard. And he said, "Okay, why don't you, Alan, and Sam on keyboards and Al on guitar, why don't the three of you come to Vancouver and we'll mess around, see what we can do." And the most incredible thing, I mean, it truly is incredible. He picks us up at the airport. He asks us who we're listening to that day. We tell him Jesus Jones and Tears for Fears and Duran Duran. And so he stops at the local record store and he buys some albums. And we go to his house and we're sitting having a cup of tea and we put these albums on. And Tears for Fears come on, and the big song was Shout, Let It All Out. When that finished, then Everybody Wants to Rule the World came on. And immediately Jim went, "Oh, it's a shuffle beat." And he runs to the drum machine, and he does this little drum machine, and Conley starts this little diggity ding, ding, ding. And I immediately go, "You take my..." No, I didn't. I beg your pardon. The first line I came up with in the verse was, "Don't forget me when I'm gone." And Valance went, "Oh, I love that line. Let's take that and move it aside." This is how clever he was. And so we kept working. I had gobbledygook lyrics until I came up with a melody for the chorus. Da 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 da. And he went, "Bring that line back." And I went, "Don't forget me when I'm gone." So we write "Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone," and then Wayne and Al, I beg your pardon, Sam and Al, they go for a walk to have a smoke. They were smokers at the time. And Valance and I are alone, and he starts this little shuffle thing on the keyboard, and I immediately go, "When I come home, you telephone when I come home." And we're about to get gate crashed here, by the way.
I can hear him.
Really.
I can hear him back there.
Yeah, can you hear him? Hopefully he'll stop.
It's okay.
And so on the very first day, we write "Someday" and "Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone" with Jim Vallance. Wow. And both of those songs go on to win, each of them win the Juno for Single of the Year 1 year apart. It'd never been done before from the same album. That's incredible.
Crazy. Yeah.
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 Life-changing session, truly, right?
Yeah, that changed everything. That was when Capitol Records said, "Okay, go kiss your babies and your families goodbye.
You're on the road forever."
Yeah, you're going on a trip.
And so how did you deal with that relatively like instant success? So you go from, like you say, sling bedpans and, sort of like playing for fun, and then all of a sudden you have, international success because you were also nominated for Grammys, were you not?
Yeah. Well, it was crazy. I mean, it's an absolute non-stop roller coaster. The two things I had going for me was I was 30 years of age, not 18 or 19. I was a single parent, I had custody of my son. So I was an old Scottish family, very grounded. So I had that going for me. And we had served our apprenticeship well. We played a lot of gigs in crummy bars with bikers and druggies and, bar fights and all kinds, bar owners that won't pay you and, really crazy times. So we were I was certainly well seasoned by the time this all happened. So the screaming girls and being chased and all that stuff wore off, fairly quickly. And I get down to the hard work of, making it work.
Yeah. And how much do you think that having good music videos played into Glass Tiger's success?
Well, it was the video age. And dare I say, we became the way that Duran Duran was with MTV, we were with Much Music and video hits. And we were the sort of golden boys for that period when videos started. And, we actually won the World Video Awards representing Canada up against Duran Duran and Tears for Fears and all these other bands, Elton John. So the video age had really, it came alive right in front of us. And of course, it lets people see the band en masse. Mm-hmm. And then the next thing you know, you're getting chased in a mall as you're trying to, you're trying to go to Shoppers Drug Mart and you're getting chased down the street. It's crazy.
Yeah. So is there any specific memory that you have of that kind of thing happening where you all of a sudden realize you're like, wow, we've made it. This is what tells me we've made it.
Well, the crazy, there's lots, I can give, lots of stories, lots of memories of knowing that we had become really super popular, but there's never really an off button. Yeah. You don't really, it's maybe one of the little regrets, we didn't take enough time to pat ourselves on the back and say, well done. Because the record company keeps hounding you for the next thing and the next thing, and so does management. So when you're hitting number one in Canada, you're trying to break it in America. And when you're climbing up the charts in America, you're doing promo in Sweden and Denmark. And then when you're in, and I know it sounds romantic, but when you're in Paris, they tell you got to do a video for America because they need the next, and it just goes on and on like that.
They're constantly chasing us like 5, 6 months, 8 months in advance, like right. Constantly.
And when your first album's a smash hit, they're already asking you for album number 2. Right. So, well, like for example, we got a big contract to play for Disney, and we did the Disney World and Disneyland, and the whole thing was about 4 months. But during every time we got a break, just about every time, Sam and I would fly up to Vancouver and work with Valance, while the other guys were around the swimming pool, having a blast. And Sam and I were working on the next album.
And you'd work at the warehouse, right? Brian Adams' studio, or?
No, we'd work at Jim's home, Jim Van. That's what I did all the great vocals in Jim's basement. Even although we had world-class studios, I was never comfortable. To this day, I'd rather, when I recorded one of my solo albums in the basement of a wee house in LA with a big duvet hanging from the ceiling, and I was behind the duvet singing, when the rest of the album was recorded in A&M Studios in LA.
It's the duvet dampener. Everyone's doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So while you've got all of that success going on with the band and you're constantly being pressured to produce new content, tour here, do this there, you also decided to launch like a solo career. What made you decide to go in that direction while still
Well,
performing with Glass Tiger?
yeah, well, really, it kind of changed actually. It wasn't as cut and dried as that. What happened was the third album, things were starting to wane. People were asking for Glass Tiger for some reason to be a little rockier, a little tougher. And I had just got Rod Stewart. Rod and I had done My Town together as a duet, and I wanted to release that as the first single. Well, the iron was hot, but we were getting pressured to be a bit more like rock, and we'd written this song called Animal Heart, and I kind of got shot down. I could have fought it harder, but I kind of got shot down, and we released Animal Heart, and it went #1 in Canada. But we kind of missed the boat on what My Town could have been. I probably had Rod ready to do the video with us, but as soon as you take that length of time and his management gets involved and agents get involved, forget it.
Right.
When it was just two pals, if I'd have had him like that, we'd have done it together for sure. And so things started to change, and I thought, I'm tired of the democracy. I need a wee bit of, is that autocracy? And so I said, boys, I'm taking a break. And so the Glass Tiger didn't play for a while, and I did 2 solo albums, which were, I believe that my first solo album, it's called Hold On. I think it's one of the finest pieces of work I've ever done. Those who bought it love it. But then I fell prey to Alanis Morissette being a 17-year-old angst-filled female, because record companies then just go, oh, now we all want that. And so I saw Alanis on David Letterman, and I thought, okay, the days of 40-year-old contemporary male singers, that's over for a while.
Right.
And so the world had a shift. And then promoters kept bugging, come on, Glass Tiger, come back out. And, they bugged me, and I said, okay, and we did it. And we did a compromise. We did quite a little bit of my solo stuff as well.
Oh, cool. I was going to say, did it scratch the itch when you did the solo stuff?
Say again?
Did it scratch the itch, to kind of not have the democracy and just you're calling the shots and you don't have to pass anything by anybody?
Well, I'm not going to lie. I mean, when you're calling the shots, it goes a bit smoother. It really does.
Yeah.
But I love Glass Tiger, and I love the guys, and I am a leader at heart, but I like to be part of a team. And Sam, the keyboard player, over the last 20 years or more, he's become the real sort of technical foundation of the band, whereas I'm very lazy with that kind of shit. I just show up. I write, I help with songs, and then I show up and sing. I don't even like sound checks. And so Sam's really held it all together for the band. So we work really, really closely on that.
Right. And so when you collaborate with people, so you've collaborated on songs for the Olympics, you've collaborated on songs for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So you're not that lazy, right? So you're always into writing and doing new
I'm
stuff.
not lazy. I'm lazy with with the right motive behind it.
Right.
Yeah. And
Yeah, I love collaborating. As you mentioned, Stefan Mocchio had this beautiful piece of music that was like sounded like an Olympic anthem, and I took it and I turned it into the song "I Believe," and Nicky Yanofsky made it an enormous hit. I love doing that kind of stuff. I love working with other artists. I've written with a few artists, but especially I've enjoyed working with young artists and watching to see if they can develop, you know.
Who would you say is your most memorable, maybe unexpectedly memorable collaboration? Like you've worked with some pretty big names, like you mentioned Rod Stewart, there's Tina Turner, Fleetwood Mac, a bunch of young artists. Which one?
Well, from a performing aspect, I mean, Rod and Tina are right up there.
Yeah.
Huge.
You know, yeah, you know, I'd gotten to know Rod Stewart as a pal, and we were at a party, and I said to him, you know, I'm really thrilled that we became pals, and then you were kind enough to do a duet with me. I said, you know, give me the triumvirate. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, I hear you're coming to Toronto, you're going to play Toronto. I said, let Glass Tiger open for you. And he said, okay, it wasn't any big deal to him.
Wow.
And that was really special. But Tina, you know, she was like huge in Europe. You know, we played Munich for 7 nights and Paris for 5 nights, and you know, multiple dates in all these insane cities. So it gave you the opportunity, like you're in Paris for 5 nights and you do some promo, but when it's 5 nights, it gave you a chance to actually see Paris.
Nice.
So you know, she was huge.
I can't remember who, a friend of mine was like, hey, ask him about Donald Sutherland. And like, you met him and apparently there's a story there. So what happened?
Well, what it is I just posted it on my Instagram. If you take a look at my Instagram, you'll see I've posted some photographs recently. There's one with I'm with Sarah McLachlan. Then there's one with Mickey Dolenz and the Monkees, and I just posted one with Donald Sutherland. And what it was, we'd written "I Believe" for the Winter Olympics. We arrived in Vancouver. We were a guest. I took my wife and my daughter to go to some of the games. And Donald Sutherland was in the hotel. And Donald was there as a Canadian promoting the Olympic Games with some ads, some commercials. And "I Believe" was the song behind him, which he didn't mean anything to him. And so I saw him sitting with his wife, and you know, I don't really bug people, but it was Donald Sutherland. So I walked over and I said, Mr. Sutherland, you don't know me, and I told him the story of "I Believe," and I gave him the CD, and he said, okay, great. And so then I said, would you be kind enough to take a photograph? And he said, no, I'm not doing it. And I said, oh, I said, oh, and he said, no, if I take a photograph with you, I'll probably have to take photographs with other people because they'll be watching.
Fair enough.
And I said, okay. And I went to walk away when his wife thumped him. And she said, hey, get up and take a photograph with that young man. And so he got up, and his face is really grumpy. He's not having a good time. And he took the photograph. But then last week, a friend took that photograph and did the old AI thing, where Donald's, he's smiling. And so I put the two of them up together.
That had to be it. Yeah, that had to be it. That's great. You must have a lot of that, a lot of those stories. Like, maybe tell us, share a story. Do they even get crazy, like the Juno parties, like backstage? What's it like backstage at a Juno party? Are there stories to be told?
At Juno parties? Yeah. Well, you know, you know, when you're established artists, you're just hanging out, and you see if Brian Adams was there and I was there, I go, hey, Brian, hey, Alan, how you doing? What's new? So for us, it's just that. For people who are either not in the industry, or they won a contest, or the fans of particular artists, it's probably a much bigger deal for them. But
for you, it's probably kind of like work in a way, right? It's part of.
Yeah, you're kind of, you know. What's the language barrier on your show? Can you swear?
Sure.
100%.
Okay, so a funny one that I posted. Oh, I posted a photograph of he and I together. So I'm with Capitol Records, but I got invited to a Warner Brothers party, and I'm there when one of the ladies from Warner Brothers says, "Alan, would you sign this guitar? The artist is signing it." And I quite honestly said to her, "You might not want me signing it because I'm not with Warner's." She goes, "Oh, no, it doesn't matter. You're a great artist and we want you." And I said, "Okay." So as I was signing it, they had got hold of this other guy who I'd never met before, and they were bringing him over to sign the guitar, and he was right behind me. And so I signed the guitar, and as I turned around, we clashed. And it was Michael Bublé.
Fun.
And we'd never met. And I went, "Oh, sorry, Michael." I said, "My name's," and as I put my hand out, he went, "Motherfucker, do you think you're going to introduce yourself to me?" And he grabbed me and he said, "I grew up with you." And his mum was in the corner. He goes, "Mom, look who I've got." And he drags me over to meet his mum. And we hung out for quite a few hours that night, and drank a few pops, and had a good.
Oh, Bublé's the best, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's so great.
Yeah.
He's so down to earth, and he's funny as can be. Yeah. It was great.
That way. Alan,
yeah.
In 2015, you suffered a fairly significant stroke, and you've recovered completely. Can you tell us what happened?
Well, you never recover completely. You're never the person. Excuse me. Tickle. You're never the person that you were before the stroke. You're always the person who suffered the stroke, and I have little issues that I carry with me today. But it was completely debilitating. I was completely paralyzed on my right side, and I couldn't walk. I couldn't move my body on the right side. And I'm a public speaker. I don't know if you know that. I go out and I do public speaking. And when I talk about trauma for people, trauma of any kind, I tell them that I learned the hard way that the only way to get through the trauma is, number one, you have to mourn it. You have to allow yourself to mourn the loss of a loved one, or you're told you've got cancer, or in my case, I'm paralyzed with a stroke. And so I was incredibly emotional for 3 days. I just cried. Everybody, people that I saw, it made me so emotional. But then you have to go into the next phase of accepting it. You have to accept it. Otherwise, you'll stay in that mourning phase forever. Right. And I know people who've lost loved ones will say that they mourn a child or whatever and I get that. I lost a little niece she was only 3 months, but I'm talking about that shift to allow yourself to not just be completely defined by the tragedy, right. to be able to move forward. You have to accept it, and then only after you accept it can you fight it. Can you put a fight up? So in my case, when I accepted it, about the 4th day of my stroke, I was dreaming, and I was having this dream that I was running. And when I opened my eyes, my toes were wiggling and my fingers were wiggling on my paralyzed side. Wow. And that was the beginning of accepting, okay, you know, and I put the fight on. And one of the things I did was I booked a gig 9 months in advance, and it sold out.
So you had to
I
get
booked
better.
a second. Well, yeah, it sold out because I think people were curious, you know, whether I was going to come out in a wheelchair or not. But anyway, I went to rehab and fought and fought and fought, and hit the stage 9 months later. I was lucky. The stroke kind of stopped behind my ear, never got into my vocal cords, and I fought my way back, and here I am.
Wow. Well, that's an amazing comeback. How intensely did you have to work at physiotherapy? What kind of things were you involved in? Was it like, were you?
Well, what I chose to do was when they released me from the hospital, they told me I could go daily, you know, go home and then daily get driven to rehab, or I could move into rehab and be there. And so I did. And I was in rehab, somewhere between 3 and 4 weeks, almost a month, where every day I worked with trying to take caps off of bottles and put my hand in rice and try and find things, and walk with a walker and then walk with a stick and then take steps and get on machines. And I did that for the best part of a month. And then even after that, I continued to go. When I did come home, I went once or twice a week back there. So I worked really, really intensely to recover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Yeah, that's crazy.
Resilience. I mean, there'd be so many people that would just kind of at that point give up.
Well, it's funny you should say that. When I was in rehab, I could tell the ones who had given up. Some of them, their strokes weren't even as bad as mine. Some were worse, but I could tell the ones that had given up, for sure.
Yeah.
Shout out to our official sponsor, Wicked White Teeth Whitening. The Wicked White Teeth Whitening Kit is what Todd and I use to keep our smiles pearly white. You can save 15% on the home line by using our code LittlePodcast.
Say again?
I'd like to get outside of music for a little bit. And,
yep.
and I'm wondering, what are you binge watching lately?
Well, you're kind of talking to the wrong guy, because I don't watch TV.
Really?
I chronically go back to things that I've seen 1,000 times. Like I will watch Back to the Future 1,000 times.
Really?
I'll watch Braveheart 1,000 times. That I go to sleep every night with my phone over on the table, and little headphones in, or if I'm in a hotel or something like that, and it's either Braveheart or Valkyrie with Tom Cruise every single night, and I fall asleep to the dialogue, the sound of the voice, because I know all the dialogue. Occasionally people have got me to watch things like, I did Breaking Bad when it was, but I like to write, so I binge writing. I'm writing a novel, and I'm working on a children's graphic novel, and so I binge writing.
Do you read as well? Are you more of a reader than a watcher?
Yes, I would be considered more. I like to read things that I can gain knowledge from. I'm not really good at the whole book kind of thing. I like to hone in on the value of the book. Some people would say that's not the right way to do it, but I tend to dive into something that can teach me a lesson or two.
Right. And is that sort of the basis of your book, the action sandwich? Is that the basis of your public speaking? Like teaching that resilience?
Yeah, so what happened was I was a student of life, you know, like Tony Robbins and Robin Sharma and Wayne Dyer, Jack Canfield, and I would read their books and listen to their tapes. And then I thought, you know, I've had a very interesting life and I've always studied life with a passion. I could write my own book and share some wisdom, even with one person, if that's what it takes. And so I wrote the action sandwich, thinking that it was going to go on the shelves and I was going to become a big-time author. When I learned really quickly it doesn't work that way. Chapters in Indigo are very much like record companies, and it's all about them. And so I got involved with this character who I talked him into letting me do public speaking for him for his business. And we traveled across Canada and it was a ton of fun and very successful. And it let me get into the public speaking arena. And I've done that ever since. I did take quite a long hiatus, but I've just actually, as you mentioned it, I've just been getting back into it again. I've done 2 or 3 big speeches and enjoyed every moment of it.
Nice. Alan, do you mind if we get into a few rapid fire questions here just at the end to wrap things up?
Sure.
Okay, let's do it. So what is the first album that you ever bought with your own money?
The first album I ever bought with my own money, I stole it. My pal and I stole it. We got 2 albums for the price of 1.
Excellent.
I'm saying no more, but we were only 15. Right. It was Slade. Slade Alive, a great British band.
Nice.
That was the album.
Nice. And was it worth the I would say money, but was it worth the theft?
No, boys and girls, do not do that.
Don't do that.
We won't tell anybody.
No, but do it all over again, I wouldn't. Right. But the album was fabulous.
Yeah. Alan, what do you think is the most underrated Glass Tiger song?
This Island Earth. It's my favorite. I just think it's a classic rock song, and I think it's very underrated. I don't know whether that's just my love of it, but I think if people, especially if you like that kind of rock sound, that haunting rock sound, I'd say This Island Earth.
Is there much frustration when you're working with labels and tour managers and stuff where they want to release a specific song and you're like, I don't want that one, I want another? Was there much of that in your career?
Generally speaking, everybody is usually on point together. But for example, Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone would have, for sure, would have gone #1 in America had the American record label done it properly. When we released Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone in Canada, it was screaming up the charts, as you know. And in the US, they had this thing where sales and airplay have to go like this. Right. And I don't know why, in their mighty wisdom, they thought they would release the single Thin Red Line first. So they released Thin Red Line, but across the border, Seattle, Indianapolis, Buffalo, Detroit, they all jumped on Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone because they were hearing it bleeding from Canada. And so there was an imbalance in America. And so it peaked as it was making through the Midwest. By the time it hit LA and Florida and whatnot, there was a real, and it got to number 2, and then Janet Jackson pipped us into number 1. But had they released Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone at the same time as Canada, there's no doubt about it, it would have been number 1.
Yeah. Alan, if you could...
Rapid fire.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. In your experience, like, so drawing on your experience, how would you describe the 80s in just like 1 or 2 words? Maybe 3 or 4.
Colorful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Fun. Colorful, fun. Fashionable.
Right.
Colorful, fun, and fashionable. There you go.
At a different time, of course, right? Like no cell phones, and just if you wanted to learn about a band that you loved, you needed to wait for Spin or Rolling Stone to come out. That's it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What's your go-to karaoke song if you karaoke?
Oh boy, me doing karaoke. Well, the one I can still slay in the original key is "With or Without You" by U2.
That's a good one.
I have my own band as well. It's called 80s 90s Rewind.
No way.
And I do all these big, Tears for Fears, Simple Minds, Midnight Oil, In Excess. I do all the number 1 hits.
I was listening to your cover album, and forgive me, I forget the title of it, but I was listening to that this morning, and it's got a lot of great 80s covers on there as well.
Yeah, so that was, I got my toe in the water. It's called 80s to 90s Rewind. Right. But since putting that album out, we've grown so much live. Like, I think I did a good job of that album, but it's a little light. I mean, I think I did a very good job of Peter Gabriel, In Your Eyes and that kind of thing, but it's a little lightweight. If I was to re-record the way that we're doing live now, it would really be, In Excess, Simple Minds, Tears for Fears. It's a really great 2 hours on stage.
That's fun.
That sounds amazing. Alan, what is the most Scottish thing about you?
The most Scottish thing about me? Probably my love of the pubs and just blethering with all the old characters in the pubs. Right. Even when Glass Tiger were big stars, I would come home. I just finished a tour with Tina Turner, and my dad would go, okay, you're back. Let's go to the pub. And we'd end up playing dominoes or darts with all the old characters in the pub.
Right.
Something like that.
And I have to ask you, sorry, I'm going off the rapid fire thing here, but I wanted to ask you, why Glass Tiger as the band name?
Probably the most asked question that we get. Nothing really complicated. When we first joined after that rehearsal, the second band after that rehearsal, we came up with the name Tokyo. And we played the bars as Tokyo because there was a real Japanese fashion thing going on in North America. So we called ourselves Tokyo. But then when we signed the record deal, it was the winter, and we had this gig coming up for New Year's Eve. And I said to the guys, we should come up with a new name. A new lease on life, a record deal, let's launch with a new name. And Al Conley, we tried all different things. And Al Conley had been reading a book by George Plimpton called Paper Lion. And he came to rehearsal and he said, what if we call ourselves Paper Tiger? And we thought, yeah. And I went home And I just messed around, and I came back the next day and I said, what do you think of Glass Tiger? It's a bit more mystical. And they all went, oh, I like that. That was it.
Right.
Nothing overly complicated.
Alan, you talked about the 80s, and one of the words you used was fashion. If you could bring back an 80s fashion trend, which one would you bring back?
None.
A lot of neon, just neon everything.
I think everybody who had their day, like if I was hanging out with Simon Le Bon or, the Thompson twins or whatever, the only thing that keeps us sane is that we all look like like goofballs in most of our videos.
You're in good company then.
Yeah, the hair, the mullets, the whole bit, the shoulder pads. It's fun to look back on, but I don't think I would revive it for a second.
Yeah,
fair enough. Alan, if you could have a time machine and get in it and go back to a concert in ancient or not so ancient history, what concert would you attend?
Oh, I'd probably watch. Now, I've seen both of them live, but I would want to see them earlier in their careers. I'd want to see Pavarotti in concert, especially Nessun Dorma. And I'd love to have seen a younger Frank Sinatra knocking it out of the park. Yeah.
What was your favorite concert you went to?
And a band that I never saw as a band would have been the Beatles. I never saw them live as a band.
Yeah.
That's surprising.
Well, I was young. I mean, they stopped playing by the rooftop. The rooftop, they'd stopped playing probably live in 1966. I was only 10. So I've never seen them live. I've seen McCartney live. I met Paul McCartney. I've seen him live, but I never saw them.
What was that like, meeting Paul McCartney? That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was incredible. And he knew "Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone." He shook my hand and he went, "Don't forget me." When I was like, I couldn't speak. I was dumb.
Yeah. What was your first concert
sure.
you went to, Alan? What was
Say
the
again?
first concert you went to?
First concert I went to was Slade, opening up for Johnny Winters at Maple Leaf Gardens. You can tell I was a real Slade fan. I stole their album, and
did you pay to go to the concert, or?
Yeah, but I think my ticket was $3.50.
Wow, that's crazy.
Wow. Alan, one more question, and then we'll let you get back to your day. How do you think the people who know you best would describe you?
Wow. That's I can only tell you what I would like them to say. If I think they know that I'm a pretty genuine soul. Sort of what you see is what you get. I try to base myself in kindness. I try to base myself in the fact that it's not about the toys and the fast cars and the big houses. I describe it that it's all about the performance, not the applause. I think I'm loyal. I think I'm a loyal friend. I've proved that on numerous occasions, and I have very loyal friends. I have people that I know that would be by my side and were during my stroke, and that would be it. Like I think they would find that I'm just as comfortable standing in that pub, having that pint, playing a game of dominoes as I am doing gigs with Rod Stewart.
That's great.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you seem like you're really down-to-earth guy, Alan, and thank you so much for joining us today and taking time out of your busy schedule. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Alan.